News you could get government cash money to scrap your old gas-guzzling vehicle for a brand new EV has some excited, but the ACT Party is slamming the policy. It's compared the $570 million cash for clunkers sweetener to a similar policy touted by former US President Barack Obama back in 2011.
With more research and incentives, we can break our dependence on oil with biofuels and become the first country to have 1 million electric vehicles on the road by 2050.
Sounded good, didn't it? Despite offering cash incentives to get Americans into EVs, that goal of 1 million EVs by 2015 was not reached. It was fewer than 280,000 by the time they got there. Motor Trade Association Advocacy Manager Greg Epps is with us this morning to debate this policy, along with the ACT Climate Change spokesperson Simon Court. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Now, I want to size you up before we get into this. What kind of car do you drive? Greg?
I've got a 2012 BMW 118.
Okay, good to know. And what about you, Simon?
The greatest Subaru Outback of all time.
Oh, now I actually had one of those, took it to the wreckers recently. What year are we talking?
2021.
Oh, it's a new one. Okay, well, you wouldn't be taking that to the wreckers anytime soon. Okay, Greg, we'll start with you. What do you like about this policy?
Mainly the idea, the concept. We have been calling for a scrappage scheme. We started calling for it based on the age of the fleet. The average age of the fleet is over 14 years old, and there are safety concerns around vehicles as they get past the age of 15. So we started from a safety point of view, and then we also realised that you could build in some emissions reductions to this by bringing down the total emissions of the fleet and getting those high emitting cars out of the fleet. Okay,
so when you say 14 years is quite an old, how old do you think, would we say any car pre, I don't know, 2010 you'd say you'd get rid of? I mean, where would you draw the line?
Well, so it's not a mandatory thing either, so it's not going to be demanding that old cars are taken out. There are cars that, if they're looked after, they perform well, and it's really about trying to get those less well-performing vehicles, the high emitters. They would be the ones that are over 15 years old, and they'll have emissions profiles that are worse than when they were manufactured, and we've got to look at how we can bring them down. But it's also about the transition. It's what are you moving into, and what we're really keen to see is that people are moved into something cleaner. So the focus on EVs solely, or EVs and electrified vehicles like hybrids and plug-in hybrids, that's probably not where we would go. We would just want to see people transition into a cleaner car. There's lots of really
lots of options there. And
lots of options.
Yeah, and we will talk about that, Greg. Simon, I want to bring you in here. Simon, what don't you like about the policy? What's wrong with it?
Well, it's totally unnecessary in terms of carbon emissions. The emissions trading scheme already puts a cap on New Zealand's transport emissions. It's also a complete waste of taxpayer money. And for context, New Zealanders are already moving towards a cleaner vehicle fleet. Every year in New Zealand, we shred around 150,000 old cars. Last year, we imported over 200,000 brand new and late model clean vehicles. This policy is completely unnecessary. We have a cost of living crisis. That's why ACT says, rather than wasting revenue from the emissions trading scheme on handing it out to a few people, what ACT would do is return a carbon tax dividend of $250 per person or $1,000 for a family of 4 to decide how they wanted to spend their money, whether it's on energy or on transport.
It's all very well to say that, we are buying more EVs, but isn't that at least in part because of the government's clean car discount?
Well, the vehicle manufacturers who came to the Transport Committee last year said they would love to sell New Zealanders more EVs, but actually they won't be making enough to sell to the world until around 2028. So any schemes that the government uses to force demand are a waste of taxpayers' money. They only force up the price of used vehicles on the open market, which actually makes it harder for Kiwi families who are already facing a cost of living crisis.
Okay, Greg, is that true? Will this policy have the effect of driving up the price of EVs and also limit supply?
Oh, well, Simon's correct. Supply is limited at the moment, and we have said, as I said at the start, EVs aren't necessarily the only solution. We're looking at how we can transition through to a cleaner fleet and look at using the improving ICE technology that's there, ICE, the internal combustion engine. I mean, there are parts of what Simon said that I can't disagree with, because yes, you know, when you focus narrowly on a small group of vehicles, you're going to create demand for that, and if the supply can't meet it, the price goes up. However, if we're trying to do a much broader policy where we can get more people moving from what they're in to something cleaner and safer, we think that has to be good for everyone.
So at the moment, the policy is just about EVs. You're saying it needs to be ICE vehicles. What are they?
So ICE stands for internal combustion engine. So that's your normal petrol or diesel vehicle. Our understanding is and to be fair to the officials that are working on this, there's been some talk going around of what the scheme might look like. They are very much in the early days of developing it, and credit to them for coming and talking to the industry about what might work and what might not. But yeah, at the moment, it does seem like the focus is EVs and hybrids and plug-in hybrids.
So you're saying ICE engines are like petrol and diesel. Why would we want to do that?
The technology for ICE vehicles has been leading to reduced emissions over the years. It just hasn't gone as fast as people have wanted. Also, there are, it's about helping people think about their transport choices. So, do you need a big car, or can you move into a smaller vehicle? Now, right. a smaller ICE vehicle can give you really good fuel efficiency and reduce the emissions.
Simon, is this just a huge subsidy for the transport sector, the motor industry sector?
Well, the way it worked in the United States was that it was the auto industry that got most of the money. The problem for New Zealand is we don't have an auto industry, so this money would simply flow overseas to car makers. It's a massive waste of money. It's simply an opportunity for Minister James Shaw and other Labour cabinet ministers to have photo ops with people crushing cars. Actually, if we want a healthy economy and thriving communities, ACT says that a carbon tax refund of $250 per person or $1,000 for a family of 4 would go a long way to helping families address the cost of living crisis.
All right.
That's what this government should be focused on.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this morning. Great to have you on 16 after 6. It's the Motor Trade Association Advocacy Manager Greg Epps and ACT Climate Change spokesperson Simon Court this morning.